Build creative confidence. Beat the inspiration addiction. Join the Writer's Gym. Nathan Newman is a novelist and filmmaker based in London. Their short stories have won awards, including the James Knudsen Prize for Fiction and been published in literary journals and anthologies. Their debut novel, How to Leave the House, was released to critical acclaim and was a New Yorker and New York Times Best Book of the Year. And you can find more about Nathan in, among other places, nathannewmanrules.com.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
Hello. How are you doing?
When I discovered your website after we spoke, I just had so much fun because, as well as the humour and the sort of laughing at ourselves with ourselves that I got from the book, I love how much you've made your website your home.
Thank you. Yeah, it was good. It was good fun. Like 2 days designing it.
Did that start happening before you were publicising the novel?
Yeah, I think maybe when the pre-orders launched, I needed somewhere to kind of put all that stuff to say, here's the link to pre-order, all that kind of thing. And that's when I made the website, really. But I really resented doing it. I really hate publicizing myself, but I was like, if I'm going to do it, I might as well have fun with it.
Yeah. And if we were going to write something in Latin above all of our heads and say, this is how to live your life, that's really how to do it, isn't it?
That's true. That's very true.
Because I did feel coming into it, and it's so interesting to know that it wasn't necessarily what you would have picked to do with your time. But going into it, I felt so much like I was getting to know a human rather than this is the buy my book dance that we all, is a good thing to do and we all have to do. I had a sense of the filmmaking, I had a sense of the humour and the gaming, and just coming into it and getting a sense of who you are. Does it feel like that for you, walking in sort of to the website? Do you feel represented by that?
Yeah, it has my sense of humour in it, basically. Although I probably need to update it. I mean, I haven't touched it up for a while, and I should do.
It does look like a great place to call home. So we met fairly recently. I already knew the book, and it was so much fun revisiting it. I'm a big fan of acknowledging the interconnection of stories, that everybody and everything is a bit player in somebody else's story. And I'm going to be spoiler free, but we have this wonderful opening. Nat West is the hero of the novel. And I love how we immediately undermine that. The whole structure is we keep meeting Nat West as a minor character in everybody else's story. And there's a sort of fight going on in maybe all of our heads for that we feel like the main character and things are meant to make sense and they fundamentally don't. So that was a big thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of my idea for the novel. Formally, if you don't know, if anyone's listening, you don't know, the structure is that everyone who Nat West, who's the main character, he goes out around his town trying to find this package, and everyone who he meets, you then, when he bumps into them, you then jump into their perspective and you see the day again through their perspective. So it's kind of like this one narrative that's interspliced with lots of other people's stories on that day. And it kind of, as you said, turns out that he's more of a kind of, he thinks he's the main character, or that he's the most important story happening on that day in that town. But really, he's more just like an inconvenience in other people's lives. And that felt like I think everyone, that is the case with everyone in the world, really. And it seemed like a cool idea to dramatize that formally with that structure. And I think that's a kind of condition, main character energy thing that's only been exacerbated by the internet. And it seemed like an interesting way to put this younger character up against all these people who are mostly older, middle-aged, sometimes younger, but mostly older people as well.
And there's a lot of what felt new to me about the perspective on what different people fear about the level of connection that the internet brings in. I found really, really interesting that there's a lovely part where Nat West is reflecting on how what the adults seem to be worrying about, sex and exposure to porn, and the way that Nat West is sort of kind of eye-rolling that we'd seen all of this stuff by the time we were, quite young, and what we're actually worrying about or what we're actually struggling with is something that maybe is being missed. And I liked that was also true for the adults.
Yeah. Well, I think their concerns are basically as adolescent as as the more adolescent character, just with different degrees of kind of magnitude and maturity, which I think is, from my vantage, feels true.
And from the point of view of coaching, is perhaps the most important thing that anyone can ever get in touch with, is the fact that when we're kids and we're looking up at adults and we believe that an adult is a thing where, the memo's been whispered in somebody's ear and they sort of know what's going on. And then we grow up and find that actually no one has whispered a memo in your ear, and we're all just sort of doing our best, working it out as we go along. I often feel that nobody ever quite resolves that. We're sort of rediscovering it all the time.
Yeah. How do you feel? Is it true that you still feel like a kid? It's a bit of like a cliche, but how does that actually feel living it?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's been better since coaching. It's been better since realizing that the real memo I feel that I have had to whisper in my own ear is that everyone is as unsure, or everybody sort of looks at somebody else and thinks, they've got it going on. They've sorted it out and I haven't. And I think where true confidence comes from is not believing I'm right about everything. Everything's going to be fine. It's knowing that the only kind of reality to that is that you take those emotions with you. You keep going with them. So me 10, 15, 20 years ago, probably talking to you going, oh my God, and by the way, this is still true. Oh my God, this is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. I laughed so much. I cried so much. This was fabulous. You're probably half my age and you have written that, would have been something to go, that worthy. I don't know if Wayne's World is even still in the history books, but the moment where Wayne and Garth go, that worthy, when they meet Alice Cooper, that tends to go on in our heads with loads of people, right? And that is probably where my reality would have been once, whereas now where my reality is this is always, all of these, conversations are a chance to meet the human, not the version of that human we create in our head. It's a chance to meet an individual person. And I love talking to writers. I love writing, or I love having written on the days that I don't love writing. It's all.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Is that a thing for you as well?
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
And it's just, I absolutely, I think that's what it is for me. It's that I was writing something the other day, the true confidence is not being sure it's all going to go well, and true clarity is not knowing all of the answers. It's being present in it. I did feel that in this. I did feel that the memo that I feel like you've got already, that I think is so healthy, is that everybody is wrong. Everybody is wrong about each other. Everybody gets stuff wrong. It's not a case of categorical goodies and baddies. Now, slight tangent. I don't know if this is more my prejudices or my history coming into it, but his mum's boyfriend was so brilliantly awful.
Okay, yeah.
Just brilliantly awful. And I said I will be spoiler free, and I will, but the humour of the relationships between them, but the way that this guy's insecurity makes him sort of need to stand in between that relationship. I'm going to declare, grew up with a single mum, maybe a little bit biased for a number of reasons. Sure, yeah. But, oh my God.
He's a lot. Yeah, I love that character. I think he's so for readers, if you haven't read, he's basically he's the main character's mum's ex-boyfriend, and he's turned up to try and get her to invest in his new Tupperware company, which is called RE Heat. And it's this kind of slightly pathetic attempt to embroil her in this probably Ponzi scheme, multi-level marketing scheme to get her to invest. But really, he's there to confess his love and see if she wants to get back together with him. And this is all kind of happening against the backdrop of the mum trying to find NatWest as NatWest is running around the town. And I love that character. But, he's very annoying and he's very insecure, but so is NatWest. I think that so are a lot of the characters, especially the men. And I think that's part of the fabric of the novel. And I wouldn't want to discredit him, because I do think he's trying really hard,
And it's that trying really hard where somebody sort of, I know there is a word that I can't find right now, but where you are seeing everybody as the reflection of yourself, of your own ego, of what they say about you.
Yes.
And not about as an independent person. I love how the relationship between NatWest and Georgie walks us through that as well, that there is that growth to the point where you can eventually see your ex-lover, your friend, as this independent being. and not what they say about you, because that sort of toxicity of friendships, relationships that have maybe got into a rut becomes so important or just so present in each other's lives that it's almost like you've forgotten that friendship is a choice. You forgot that they do seem to be just a reflection. And Georgie and NatWest sort of work that out by the end, don't they? And I'm not sure that the boyfriend does.
Yes, that's true. And part of that is because NatWest has been stuck in that town. You know, I think that exacerbates that kind of, everyone becomes a mirror everyone is a mirror, which you see yourself in when you're not seeing anyone outside of the normal people who you always see every day. And because basically NatWest has been stuck in that town for 4 years before, when everyone, all his friends and everyone have left, gone to university. So I think there is that, you know, when you're stuck in a small town, it kind of becomes, you know, it traps you in more ways than just physically, ideologically, socially. And I think, like, at least for NatWest, kind of spiritually, it kind of has made him extremely solipsistic as a result, because there's nothing new happening really to kind of break him out of himself until the beginning of the novel.
We have more than one ending.
Yeah, totally.
And what I find really fascinating and encouraging is that even with two endings, even with it could go like this, it could go like that, both end in him leaving. It's never, do I stay here forever, and sort of get sucked into repeating my own beliefs about myself that staying in the same physical place can reinforce. And there's no temptation to do that. He is out of there. That felt very relevant to me. Is that fair?
Yeah, totally. And, you know, those two endings, the novel ends in two kind of similar but different ways. That for me, the whole novel is kind of thrown up. It's all been about perspective. And to me, it only makes sense that there's two perspectives on that ending. It's thrown up lots of questions around binaries and kind of different approaches to the world. Different, you know, are you some characters are more like happy people, some people are sad people, some people have go a certain way, others go another way. And it felt like NatWest is torn between these two kind of basically aesthetic modes or aesthetic approaches to life and philosophy, or a philosophy of being. And the end of the novel throws that into dialogue with each other with two endings that ultimately are kind of different things happen, but the same stuff happens at the same time. Ostensibly different things happen, but it kind of ends up being, I think there's a line in the novel, it's like two punchlines to the same joke. Yeah. And that joke is narrative, the idea that you could be certain about an approach to life, especially if you're like a younger person or an adolescent, a more adolescent person who believes that life is this way, or actually, you know, there's a lot more different approaches to it. But ultimately, they all kind of lead the same way. And he does leave the house by the end of the novel.
And that's what it is, isn't it? You begin by leaving the house, but you're only really leaving the house when you've decided to go your own way, be your own person. Mm-hmm. And that does often mean leaving behind the versions of yourself that other people are sort of committed to. My experience wasn't leaving a town. I grew up in London, but I stayed in the same bit of London for a really, really long time. And when I went to university, I was still living at home. Mm-hmm. And then when I met my partner, moved to a different bit of London. And I did not know until that happened how a small number of miles might be all it takes for your mind to adjust slightly, I think, to become
completely
that sense of hometown.
yeah.
But yeah, having that patch where so much of your life is, I so felt that. But reading this and the teacher, that my heart absolutely broke. I taught youth theatre. I did all of that before coming to coaching. And oh my God, it hasn't gone that way yet. But I'm just, when I see these people that I remember as these little creatures who've just discovered who they are and they're going off into the world, you know, I'm going to be proud no matter what. And I so get the feeling though that we all sort of, I mean, something that I took from that as well was, I guess, just the way as a teacher, it's almost like it's the ultimate example of how you can feel like what you have done or not done. The people that you taught, you are so reflected in. And that's what it does feel like a hall of mirrors in that way, that we are all sort of looking at each other about what they say about who we are. Mm-hmm. I guess that's one of the interconnection-y things for me.
Yeah, I mean, and teachers are so important, obviously, in everyone's life. Yeah. But that, that moment when you meet your teacher outside of school, it's a bizarre and slightly, and really knowing that they have a life, like a human life outside.
It's disturbing.
That classroom and that relation to teaching, English or French or whatever to you is absolutely one of the most disturbing experience. It's almost like, seeing your parents have sex or something. It's one of these just like world-rending experiences, especially when, I remember when I was at school, it'd be like, oh my God, have you found this person's social media profile? The idea that they would post on social media about that, a teacher would post on social media about their life is completely strange and weird. And it just seemed like a perfect thing to dramatize, really, especially because NatWest thinks he knows everything, but here's one person who absolutely knows best and better for him.
And there they are, and they might be disapproving. I love the way that they overanalyze and they overthink each interaction, and I so see myself in that. And it's actually a really lovely example of something that hasn't changed through all of this interconnection, that now that we have the internet in all of the ways that we have it, if I see my old teacher in the bank today, that will be just as disturbing as it was in 1997 when that happened.
Totally.
Yeah, it is just absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, I cannot overstate how much I have enjoyed this, and I would love to know, from a writing perspective, what has been important in the journey for you? Now, I know you studied under Zadie Smith, because that was how I met you. But tell me a bit about coming to this. Tell me a bit about coming to writing.
So it was really that I wanted to make movies. I wanted to be a filmmaker, but COVID happened in my last year of university. So I kind of was just like, there's no point in applying to film school because I was going to be I wasn't going to be able to get on set. And so I basically kind of thought I'd write a novel, and I'd always thought of myself as a writer. And despite having a lot of time at university, I never really wrote that much. And now suddenly I had loads of time for the first time in my life. Well, not for the first time in my life, but it was the time where I was like, okay, if you don't write in this 8 months or whatever of lockdown, then you can't call yourself a writer. And so I wrote the first kind of third of a novel, let's say. And then I decided to apply for a NYU in Paris, which is like a kind of knockoff version of the NYU course, the main NYU course, which is basically you go to Paris, you have 3 sessions with a mentor, and then you go to Paris and everyone drinks lattes, whatever. I never got to Paris because it was COVID, but it was a lovely, and I could only afford 1 semester actually, but I got the semester, and then I petitioned Zadie Smith to be my mentor. She agreed to be my mentor, and then she kind of very much helped usher me through that first draft, a lot of that first draft of that novel, in a way that I'll always be thankful for, really, especially because she was like kind of like one of the reasons why I became a novelist in the first place. And so it was just suddenly very bizarre to be writing, every week and having a call with her and her tearing apart my work, and then me trying to make it better. Talk about that teacher, like Mrs. Pandey in the novel. Weirdly, I end up feeling like I had a bit of that with Zadie, where it's that, a great teacher is not really someone who's great at teaching. It's more just someone who you really want to impress, I think, at least for me. And then that makes you step up.
Is it impress? Is it connect with?
Well, I think it's different for everyone. I think for me, if I really want to impress someone, it'll make me work harder for sure. And that's part of that is like listening and hearing what they want. And then you kind of figure out, and a lot of that is, I think I'm very good at knowing what other people want. Ironically, it's maybe slightly anxious about my style, because I think that period with Zadie made me go, okay, this is what Zadie wants. This is how to write for Zadie Smith, which is not a bad thing. She's a great reader, but it's slightly, I think it delayed my development in another sense of becoming a certain kind of writer, which itself is great because I end up becoming this kind of writer, which is amazing. And it's kind of slightly similar to maybe how she writes, although she would hate to hear that. And yeah, so that was the process with Zadie. And then came out of that first semester. I dropped out after that first semester, and then basically spent ages trying to get an agent, got an agent, and then publishing happened quite soon after that, fortunately.
I'm curious, you say she'd hate hearing that. Really? I think, because for me, hearing you say that, it is so interesting, because I would not have picked up this and go, Zadie Smith wrote it.
Yes.
I wouldn't. I would pick it up and say it is brilliantly specific. You and your editor know how to get what needs to be there absolutely crystal clear. The oyster is gone. We are left with the pearl. You have cut it down to what you need, which I would absolutely say is true of Zadie Smith. And I guess this is, yes, I have the history of before I was coaching, I was a teacher, I was a tutor, and I was a drama leader and director. But the point is always go into somebody else's head and bring them from where they are now to where they want to be. So as you say, it's what people want. It's looking for the objective first. And I mean, if I'd been Zadie Smith in this situation, I would be bloody proud of this, because it's definitely not a Zadie Smith book. It's a damn good book in its own right. So I guess that's what I was thinking as I said that.
Yeah, totally. And I think she's very proud of me. I love her to bits. She's amazing. The kind of finding that pearl in the oyster.
Yeah.
That was a big, when I set out to write this, I knew there would be 9 perspectives basically that I would have to write from. And usually when you have a novel which has 9 perspectives, it's a big novel. It's a chunky novel, because you're going to have to process all these. Basically, it's like 9 short stories and a novel. But I also didn't want it to be overwhelming, large, unappetizing, and uncontrolled. I didn't want it to feel like I had all these ideas and I could just stuff them in there without knowing about structure, knowing how to make this work. And a big part of my process of writing this was just really just getting down to what is the most, what is the, possibly at the cost of some literary value, what is the only things you need to know. There were no darlings were executed en masse. And then I'm quite proud that I managed to get it down to like 70,000 words, which is, for the amount of perspectives there are and the amount of full stories that get told along with NatWest's main narrative. Now when I look back on it, I'm kind of like, I don't even know how I bloody wrote that. I've just finished my second novel and I'm kind of like, I'm quite impressed by that, just how terse it is in a certain sense narratively, but so much happens, and that, I don't know how I did it really. I think that was maybe coming from like a film background or something and being very just concerned of, if it's not needed, cut it.
I did notice that the show Don't Tell Within People's Thoughts is very precise. So
yeah.
I did wonder if that was helpful, knowing that the more that ends up on the cutting room floor, the more what is left shines.
Yeah, totally. I love cutting. Like, I'll write quite a long first draft. That's usually, maybe not a really long first draft, but then I'm quite merciless when I cut. In a way that sometimes worries me. This is just boring writer anxiety, where I get worried that I'm becoming too spare, basically, and cutting all the description out of things. And before I'd write how beautiful this room was, and I'd analyze all the things in the room, and that would say things about the character. And now I'm just kind of like, he walks into a room. That's fine. That's all I need.
There may be something in that for the future as well, mightn't there? That you were saying about, I know how Zadie Smith would write this, and I've been trained in that. And the idea of worrying that, okay, I've gone down that route. But the beauty of it is we don't have to choose. If you want to explore, if you want to be curious about something else in a future project, you get to do that.
Yes, totally. I love, I basically, my first 2 novels, my second novel was, I just finished it. I wanted them both to be a piece in like a kind of, they're my fun early novels. I love novelists who have books in their 20s and they're so filled with energy, and they're, what they lack in maturity, they make up for in a kind of kineticism and all that kind of stuff. And you can never really get it back as well, because you're seeing them develop their writing style on the page, and you can't put the genie back in the bottle once they've learned how to not do some of that stuff, which is also part of the thing that makes their style or that early stuff quite enjoyable. And I think that's the case for Zadie, for sure. Her first 2 novels have that in abundance, and then she becomes much more refined and mature once she's in her 30s. And I think that's kind of what I wanted to do for my first 2 novels, is make sure I had that. I don't feel ashamed by having that, having those first 2 novels feel like that, because I know how much I love reading that when I was a younger person. And I'm very excited to see where my style goes, I guess. Or I'm curious, now I'm like, cool, I've done those 2 fun ones. What's the mature style going to look like? Now I can figure it out, and then I can go over 5 years and figure out what the mature style is going to be, the more mature style.
And also it's as well as figuring it out, it's allowing it to happen, isn't it? It's knowing that there is time ahead. And this is something else that I don't really believe there is ever a story where our relationship with time is not relevant, because we are that is the primary relationship of our lives, really. But to do this in 24 hours, to have this happen for NatWest in that structure within 24 hours means that he's, without knowing he is doing so, tidying up the loose ends of an era in order to leave and get on with things in a new era. And I think something I do find very moving about that is that, particularly as writers, we'll often bullshit ourselves that we need a lot longer to work things out than we do.
Yes.
That, you know, I will have clients who truly believe they need a whole day to do something meaningful, and by extension, if they don't have a whole day, they cannot write meaningfully. And then as their confidence in their ability to use 10 minutes for future notes to future self is something that I tend to say. And, oh, look, because I have an overall picture in my head of where I'm going towards, I'm using those 10 minutes. More is happening in those 10 minutes. I'm less attached to them. They've come off the pedestal. I can walk through the world doing this, not spending the time on the why of am I a writer, but the what of what do I want, what's on my mind, what do I want to say. And I think that maybe applies to broader directions as well, that these are things that you're doing so well and it's so enjoyable. I honestly, I adore this, and something else will happen later, of course. Almost the joy of that, it kind of needs to be not knowing what's going to happen next. That, you know, I guess what I'm maybe comparing in my mind a bit. So to give you some idea, can you see the 3 volumes up there of We All Hear Stories in the Dark? That is 3 volumes of interconnected short stories, which his publisher said, "Are you insane?"
That's great.
You know,
love it.
And depending on what route you take through the choose your own adventure, you either get massive horror or you get something much more sweet and moving, and you see some of the stories completely differently depending on what story you're bringing with you. And I was going, I hate structure, I'm scared of structure is all going wrong, and he's saying that structure is so much fun. I think he was the person I wanted to impress, but I think what I came around to, and it will be very different for you, is even when I am the writer I want to be in this, it's not necessarily going to be a book that writer is going to enjoy. That I love what he does, but as a reader, I am probably not what he is going to be attracted to. I guess it can come at different times, but there's almost a rebellion act in there somewhere that we need to sort of go, this was my adult at this point, but maybe I need to reset the measuring devices.
Yes, yeah, totally.
To let myself be capable of other things, maybe.
Well, I think you've always got a kind of ideal reader in your mind. Sometimes that's a real person, and sometimes that's yourself, or it's some kind of weird constructed thing, or someone who's dead. Often often it's writers who are dead, or that person like about it. And I think that's, you know, I feel sometimes a bit fraudulent in a way, you know, like I've been reading some William Blake recently, and I'm like, you know, this is someone who was just writing for himself, and it's just it's absolutely astonishing that anyone could do that. Whereas I'm very much, it always feels like I'm kind of faking someone who I can write for just to get the thing done. And it, you know, it makes me feel, like a bit like a fraud, which I think is quite common for a lot of writers, really. But but that person changes all the time, for me at least, especially as I get older. And then on the time thing, I do want to say, saying it in 24 hours, people have said, oh, there's lots of, you know, literary, you know, it's like Mrs. Dalloway or Ulysses and all these amazing literary antecedents. But like, really, it was just, I didn't know how to make time pass. Like, just in terms of a sign of like a really juvenile writer, I just didn't know how to make things happen. Other than in the next chapter, I was like, I guess it's the next minute. And then that was it. And I just didn't know how, you just didn't have to say, oh, now you just say 2 weeks later.
May I just celebrate imposter syndrome for a minute? Because a lot of the writers listening to the Writers' Gym are potentially in the, I will feel like I'm a serious, proper writer when I have published XYZ, or when I've been recognised in this way. And then we get that, and then we realise we've taken exactly the same feelings with us, and we've just, all that changes is the goalpost. You know, I'll feel better about it when that bigger thing happens. And, you know, I'm just gonna, you know, hold this up one more time and say, you know, it's out there. You've created this brilliant thing. It's got the recognition, and a human brain will still find reasons to feel like they've somehow cheated just because it works. You know,
totally.
I think that is a really useful thing for people to hear, that you're also going, oh, well, I only did that because this, or I did it easily because of that. Yeah. And it is just being human, isn't it?
The trick is to then justify your mistakes, you know. Oh, I couldn't do that, but then I could clearly see why it would work for this story, so therefore it's okay. I can see that that's my weakness, or it's a weakness that's been corrected now, hopefully, and therefore I can do it. I can make the story that way, and kind of figuring out what you can't do, and then writing, hiding it really, and then privately tackling what you can't do to see if you can get better at it, like in a gym or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like in a gym or something.
Yeah.
It's so the reason we call it the writer's gym is it's what are those exercises that, you know, get you where you want to be. And I think that's such a gorgeous example. It's that Wes Anderson line in The French Dispatch about how the one piece of advice the editor gives to his journalists is make it look like you meant to write it that way.
Yeah.
And that is the fun, isn't it? In terms of writing and life, now I know because it says so that you were also working as an usher.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Are you still ushering?
No, I left that job. I left that job at the end of last year after 6 years of working in the cinema. And yeah, it was a long time to working in a hospitality job, basically. Usually you only stay in one place for like 2 years max. And it's bizarre to be there for 6 years because you just see so many kind of generations of staff come and they all leave at the same time. And then you're just like the only one left standing. And then more new people come in and you become friends with them and then they leave. And
it's also very much overlapping in the material, isn't it? That there is a sort of sense of other people are moving.
Yes,
totally, I am the fixed point. What do I see? And it's also, which is another tangent, because what I meant to ask you is I have people who are still fighting the idea that in order to get writing done, we have to be doing only writing. Now, I realise lockdown terribly helpfully came along and allowed you to do some of that.
Yeah.
But what's it been like for you in terms of having a non-writey job, making the right spaces for writing?
I quit my job thinking that I would write more and that therefore it was worth more kind of my time and money in that sense. And I haven't written more since quitting my job. And I think if you really want to, I think, and often the people I know, my friends who are writers, who have full-time jobs, one of my best friends is a teacher, used to be a teacher. And when she taught 9 hours a day, including commute and everything like that, she'd get home and then she'd just write in the evening. She wrote way more than she does once she got a part-time job and left teaching, which is a much more intensive job. But obviously it's different for everyone. But yeah, you absolutely can. And often it's, if you get stuck in a situation where you're just staring out the window all day in your office or in a coffee shop or something, you're not really getting that much. You're really stuck in your thoughts and you really have to have a big imagination, I think. But yeah, you absolutely can have another job. And I did, even writing the second novel, I had another job. It was a part-time job though, so I did have a lot more time than most people. I've been very lucky in that sense.
Lucky or knew what you want and made it happen?
Lucky, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's an unbelievable accession of luck has got me to the place where I can write. I'm a little bit broke right now, but more or less write full time, and which is an incredibly brilliant and privileged position to be in. So I don't think luck is the main thing, but there is an energy and there is hard work and all that kind of stuff that comes with it.
I will see your luck and I will raise you.
Yeah.
Contacted the agent that you wanted, right?
No, I emailed every agent in the country multiple times, and every agent in the United States as well. And over the course of about 8 months, I didn't know, that's the agent I want. I think at the start I was like, okay, cool, I want that agent, but they didn't get back to me. I spent about, that was the hardest process. That was probably the most miserable 9 months of my life because I'd written a book and it felt like I had loads of energy behind it. And then no one wanted to represent me because no one thought the book could sell. And then eventually I did get an agent, but only because I started lying. And maybe this is a good tip is when I was going out to agents, I just realized no one was reading their emails, or their assistants were reading their emails, or sometimes their kids would read their emails. They'd pay their kids, someone told me, to read their inbox submissions. And it's very, very hard unless you really have a good contact to get you in with an agent. And I even had that. I mean, Zadie set me up with her agent, which was really nice, but this was very lovely. Wasn't interested in taking me on board, but still I only started getting an offer of representation once I just said, I've already got offers of representation and I'm about to be snapped up, but I really like you and I'd love to see you. So don't be afraid to lie in that sense. Yeah. When you've tried for a few months to try and get an agent normally. But once I just started lying, then suddenly people actually read the manuscript, which was like that's the battle, is just to get them to read the first 5 pages. And if they know that someone else is interested in it, even if that person doesn't exist, they will actually read it. It's a little bit underhand, but I was at that point where I had emailed everyone and no one was reading, or they would read and they'd just be like, I don't think, because they were the only person who they thought had been sent it, that that they could sell me, basically.
There is something in that, and it is not unlike dating in a way that there's, I don't want to sound like I'm sanitizing the idea, but there's a sort of overlap between lying and positive exaggeration, as in editor who has not replied to my article pitch. I sent one CCing somebody I knew in there saying, I'm just, dear editor name, brackets, cheerfully CCing this person just to make sure the email's right. Did you like it? Would you like to discuss it as this, that, or the other? This magazine is absolutely my favourite. It's absolutely where I want to see it. So I'm just checking in with you before I even consider sending it to other places. And then I got the reply in a way that I hadn't got. I mean, I also said in it, I know how busy you are. I did not say, you've been ignoring me for weeks and weeks and it's breaking my heart, but so it is like dating in that keeping within your own centre of gravity, finding that balance between showing you're interested without desperation, holding that sort of, center of gravity.
I think if you're unpublished, you have every right to hustle and do everything you can to try and get published. I think that's because I know how hard it is to get published and how the dice are absolutely loaded against you. Especially if you don't have connections or contacts in the industry, or you're not born in a certain place or born into a creative world where your parents, know agents and producers and so on. It's really, you should have no shame about doing anything within reason, anything you can to get the attention of those agents if you believe in the work that you've got. And, once you get firmly established, you don't want to be a successful novelist and then be lying and stuff. That's a bad idea. But in general, in that early stage, there are these kind of like ideas that you might get blacklisted or something. If you make enough noise to get blacklisted, that means you probably already, that's a good sign. That means that you've got someone's attention at least.
And it's making the noise in your own voice though, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, completely. And just backing yourself.
It's been so lovely to hear all of this, but the habits of keeping something consistent, can I ask about, from a writing point of view, what works for you? Either it might be times of the day, it might be I can do this much and then my brain needs to say no sale. What happens for you?
Yeah, mainly figure out what stops you writing and then set everything up in your life that you can, economic conditions being the case they are, to make sure that those things that stop you writing are minimized. And that, for me, is emails and disruption. If I get an email that I know will disrupt me, or if I've emailed someone who I'm waiting for a reply, and I know I'm going to be stressed if I don't get that reply, just because I like certainty, send that email at the end of the day. Don't send it in the morning, and then you're going to spend the whole day when you're meant to be writing, thinking about, is that email coming in? Let me check my inbox, so on and so forth. So for me, it's very much removing distractions, disconnecting from the internet if you can. It's very hard, but that's got to be for me, that's a big distraction. If I have the internet, then I will be on Instagram, I will be watching YouTube, I'll be just doing anything possible to distract myself, playing Tetris, playing chess online. I've got this great app on my laptop called Self-Control that basically you put in a block list of websites that are bad. You set it for 6 hours and you cannot access any of those websites, even if you restart your laptop or anything. So it's called Self-Control. And they're not paying me to say this, but it really helps. It's free as well. And I find that really helpful. And there's just kind of lots of little tips and tricks. Also, where you write, I think is very important. If I'm at home, I can't write at home because there's too much distraction. And I just kind of go I might actually go and have a nap, or I might go and do something else in my flat, and my flatmates are around as well, so they'll be coming in. So find a place. So I go to this one particular quite quiet cafe where I just go sit in the corner and I work for most of the day, or a library or something like that. Just find out where you can write as well. It's like a routine building if you can build a routine. Although I feel like what you were saying earlier, which is if you have the stamina to be able to do, okay, I can do 10 minutes here, I can do half an hour there, I'll be able to get a little pocket of time over there. I really want to learn that, and I'm not great at it at the moment. I really do just this is my writing day, no one disturb me, to the annoyance of everyone in my life.
I mean, for the record, it's definitely, from where I'm coming from, not an either or. For people who have yet to find the creative confidence to start moving their life jigsaw around and to acknowledge, if I want to do this, these are the things, as you say, that are going to make it happen. These are the times I want, and making your life fit around it. For those people who are not yet actively making that jigsaw that you're talking about, those 10 minutes at least show them it's in here. It's up to me to get it out. I guess if I were in coach mode at that moment and somebody had said, I do have my days that I do it, but maybe I want to get better at those 10 minutes, not because I need to desperately, but just everybody gets to want stuff. Then it's nice because you've identified this is something I want, and I can sort of give myself a star for achieving. We do. I use this with my physiotherapist as well, that went for physio and stuff like that. That the good psychology points of a star chart of going, I did it yesterday, and then I did it again today, and then I did it again today. Look, I have done this thing I thought I couldn't do, or that I could have bullshitted my way out of doing. I've now done this many days in a row and I can see it. That's really great. That feels good.
Well, I just said novels they're long-term projects. You don't write a novel in 2 weeks, or if you do, it's not going to be good. If you can, bloody do it.
Sure, I wish I could. Absolutely.
That being said, I bloody wish I could write a novel in 2. But they're long projects that take years. Certainly from when you have your idea to when you start writing to when you're done, and then editing and drafting and everything. And it kind of doesn't really matter how you get there. It doesn't matter if it's a really slow hike, or if you're on the express train, or if you can manage to catch a flight. Whatever happens, whatever that journey is, just know that it's long, and it's going to take ages. And that's the big part of it, is just having the stamina to return to that document time and time again. I mean, there's little practical things that I sometimes do. Is I never have one big document which has the whole thing. I know some writers do, because then they can reread everything they've written. I used to write like that, but then I remember my very first thing I tried to write, I got 20,000 words into a novel, and I just started hating the stuff as I'd read through it. I'd hate that first, whatever it was, 70 pages. And I'd just be like, that is awful, awful. And then I abandoned the novel. And just having chapters, just writing chapter by chapter, then it's like a finished document. You can come back and redraft it later, but that gets stored away. And now I'm on to the next chapter. It's separate, just little things like separate documents, I find, for my constitution helps a lot more than if I just have one big document that compiles everything already. And just compile it at the end once you've redrafted all those chapters individually, I found really helps in terms of managing the timeline. I
find that really helpful as well. It's much less overwhelming, I think. And that's the goal, isn't it? Anything that's going to play into overwhelm is the enemy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I loved hearing you say about those, was it 8 months of emailing everybody?
Yeah.
All the agents.
I mean everyone. I emailed every agent multiple times.
And I'm so glad you did, because this is just a fabulous thing. And I am really, in the least pressurizing way possible, looking forward to the next one.
Thank you. Yeah.
Do you want to have a word about the website, about where you want to direct us to come and find you online?
You can follow me on Instagram, Nathan Newman, or buy the book if you're interested in the sound of it. Should be in all the Waterstones and Foils and independent bookshops and online and so on. Thank you if you're interested. It's on EPUB as well. It's on audiobook in the States.
We will absolutely be directing people to go and find How to Leave the House, and I'm going to hold it up again because it's also so beautiful.
Thank you. And the paperback is a yellow cover. It's the same image, but the paperback is a yellow cover. So that is The Creation of Adam from the Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo. And there's a scene in the novel where there's a nail salon that has that as the sign, which is why there's the painted nails, painted pink on the cover here. And it kind of leads to a discussion about, is this bad art? This modification of this art, is it bad? How self-aware is it? The nail salon's called Nail Again, Nail Better. And it's just, I remember when we were going through the covers, my editor suggested this one, and they designed it. And I just thought, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of art discussion in the novel. And I just thought, in a way, it seems more cringe when you look at it until you've read it. But then once you've read it, I think the cover is really good, basically.
Hello, imposter syndrome.
Yes, well, yeah.
I'm not going to argue, because you get to decide what is cringe to you, of course.
Yes.
But I'm going to just say again, fantastic. Well, Nathan Newman, thank you so much for joining the Writers' Gym.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You've visited The Writer's Gym with author and coach Dr Rachel Knightley. Production and sound design are by Ashley Lexine, and theme music is by Chris Gregory.